All right, Firebird artists, hopefully we have time today on the first day of art to create your name tag. And so this year, my theme in art, and throughout the whole school year, hopefully we'll be swimming together, staying with the school, being kind fish to one another. So School of Fish is our theme. We're going to be working with name tags in the shape of fish. We're going to do some printmaking fish. So we're just going to kind of look at some different ways in which fish are used in art. So our standard in creating, because again, we all have standards, even not just in math and science and in language arts, but also in art. So the standard that we'll be reaching today is in creating, because we are going to be creating. You're going to be creating and developing and organizing your ideas about how you want to design your art. So understanding how to work with form. So we have some forms to use and different materials that you can use. So again, our creating standard is how to create this. How do you want to use it? What kind of fish do you want to do? And the other standard is making a connection. I hope that many of you have been able to go snorkeling or even looking at tide pools where that you sometimes see different colors of fish. So I'm hoping that in this project that you create a fish, maybe use the colors of a fish that you personally connect to. Like if you like those little blue fish, granted if you're at the pink table, you're not going to make it all blue, but you can use some blue on yours. So again, I want you to try and make a connection with the fish in the sea and which ones you really enjoy looking at. So to start off, you're going to use the color construction paper of your table. And that way it's easy for me to, if your name tag gets lost, one, I kind of know what table that you sit at, so I'll be able to put it in that table folder. And two, they're really colorful when I put them up on the bulletin board. So the first step is to either, you've got a couple options, use one of the tracers that are on your table. And every table has about 4 or 5 different shapes of fish. Or you certainly can create your own. So you want to either use a tracer or make your own. So I'm going to use this guy. And if you have a half piece of paper like this, it should fit right there. Okay. So whenever you're cutting out or tracing something, it's always best to go close to an edge versus in the middle, and then nobody can use either side. So you're going to go close to the edge. Now, I'm going to reach over here and get a big sheet of paper. Sometimes the construction paper isn't in half, so if you have a big sheet of paper, you're not going to want to trace your stencil or draw your fish in the middle because now you've wasted all this. You want to scoot your fish and maybe turn it so that it's on the side. And that way we can cut this in half, just like I did here, and somebody else can use that half. Okay? So think about your space. The space on your phone, on your paper, is one of the elements of art. So how you use the space in your design using this paper that you have is an element of art. We're going to be using different shapes or form. That's also an element of art. So we're going to be looking at forms. The difference between shapes and forms, and hopefully some of you know, so I'm going to give a moment to see if anyone knows the difference between a shape and a form. So hopefully some people might know the difference. Shapes are 2-dimensional and the forms are 3-dimensional. So in this project we're using shapes because we're only using a 2-dimensional piece of paper. Okay. So once you decide on your tracer, so these are also called tracers, you're going to use your pencil and trace around. And so whenever you're tracing something, it's always nice to hold it down and kind of move the hand that's holding down, the one that doesn't have the pencil, along where you're tracing. Okay? If I held it over here and tried to trace, that's what's going to happen. It's going to come up, right? So move the holding hand close to where you're tracing so that you can get the shape that you want. Now if your fish moves, no big deal. You're using a pencil and you can erase. So you can see a little bit my fish moved, but that's okay. I can just erase. So step 1 is to trace it on your paper. Step 2 is to maybe add the design. So if you want to do exactly this fish, you might want to add some of the similar designs. I'm going to put an eye here. It doesn't have to be exact. Fish all have mouths, believe it or not. Okay, and they have fins, so you want to make sure you get their fins in, maybe just by adding lines. And he's also got a fin here. Doesn't have to be perfect, just have fun creating lines. So the next element of art that you're doing with this project is line designs. So you're adding lines, straight lines, squiggly lines, swirly lines, any type of line design on your fish. It doesn't have to look like a real fish. You can do whatever you like, okay? Once you kind of penciled in your design, before you start to add color, so I've kind of add a little bit of design, and I can always add more. I want to place my name. These are your name tags. So you want to make sure your name is somewhere big. So I'm going to use the black Sharpie so I can read it, and I'm going to write, you're going to write your name, so your first name. So let's see, I'm going to use Tim. It's not my first name, but I'm just going to do it nice and big. So you can see that I can see the word Tim nice and big, and that way when you're done with it and you put it in the holder here, I'll be able to read it. Once your name is on it, the next step is now to outline your design. Okay, again, you don't want to lose your name, so don't cover up your name with a design. You don't even have to go outline the whole thing, but you can if you want. So I've outlined it. I think I'm going to add my outline, my black lines. I'm going to add, I love working with swirly swirls, so I'm going to add some swirly swirls. So again, with this project, we're working with shape and line designs. So you want to make sure you pick a shape or create your own shape. And if you're doing your own shape, just make sure it's at least this big. So that's as big as your hand. So if you're making up your own fish, make it as big as your hand, okay? Once you've got your design down and your name, and again, making sure your name is really bold. We don't want to lose your name in your design. You might think you should cut it out, but we're not going to do that yet. We're going to now add color. So color is also an element of art, and the colors that you pick kind of will matter as to how your design obviously will look, right? You can do any colors that you like, but you want to make sure that you don't cover up the whole paper because you want to see the table color obviously showing through. So I know Sally sits at the pink table. So for color, you can use the markers, and I have big markers all over. You can use crayons. You can also use colored pencils. So there's colored pencils on the table as well. So I'm going to try and use colored pencils for this one. I'm going to pour out my colored pencils. And whenever you're using any tool, whether it's a marker, a crayon, a colored pencil, the key is coloring in one direction, okay? So I'm going in one direction. I'm not doing this and then this. Because what is that called? What's that called when we do this? I know you know. So it's called scribbling. And scribbling can be an art form, but not for this project. Okay? So again, you want to make sure that you add color. If you're using a colored pencil or even a marker, color in one direction. And you don't have to fill up the whole paper. Remember, I want to see some of the table color showing through. So I added a little bit of red there. Now let's say I want to show you a marker use. Again, for a marker, you want to get in one direction. Okay? So I'm using it in one direction. I'm not changing directions. I'm not going back up and down and this way. You want to make sure your name is really identified, so don't cover up your name. So I can go over my black marker because the black will show through my orange. Now sometimes colors, markers on construction paper turn a different color, so you just have to be okay with that. The other thing is sometimes markers get really dry or get really faint. And when that happens, it's probably because you're pushing down too hard. So whenever you're using any tool, the lighter you are, the longer it lasts. The lighter you are, the longer it lasts, okay? So if I was done coloring this, again, you don't have to, you can use any colors that you like. I have to turn it around so I can kind of see what it looks like. It's hard for me to do it upside down. I think I'll add a little line here. Kind of have fun with your design. Once you're done using color, then you're going to grab your scissors and cut it out. So the sharpest part of the scissors is right where the two pieces meet, okay? Not at the tips, but you have to get your paper right there. So you're going to get it so that the paper is right at, I call the mouth of the alligator. And notice I'm not even using those pieces. So right now I'm just going to cut out this piece. Now what do you do with this piece? Well, you could put it back in here. Somebody else might want to use it. You could also, if you used it for your testing of colors, maybe put it in your folder. You might want to use it later for something. So if there's a big piece left that you've used as your test paper, just put it in your folder. But otherwise, you're going to cut out your name tag. Your name is on the front already, right? When you're done cutting it out, I want you to turn it over. So I'm going to use this one because it's already cut out. So my name, Sally, is on the front. On the back, once it's cut out, you're going to put your teacher's name. So if your teacher is Miss Bender, you're going to write Ms. Bender. Okay. Now if you use a marker, so I used a marker, you can see that the marker sometimes bleeds through. So you might want to just use a pencil. But again, cut out, turn it over, put your teacher's name on it, and then it goes in the holder, and behind the holder is your folder. And that might be all that we get done today, the first day of art. So welcome to Art 2019. I'm looking forward to having an awesome, artful year.